Right, so at a time when the divide between those with money and those without has never been starker in Western societies, be that the US, the UK, or many a European nation, and at a time where the Israeli regime of Benjamin Netanyahu wants for nothing in its persecution of the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank, financial and military aid always there, there's probably no bigger travesty in the eyes of ordinary working class people the world over to see inordinately wealthy Israel-supporting people getting together to splash their wealth in the interests of furthering Israeli atrocity and apartheid. Yet last Monday saw just such an event. So much money splashed that an entire hospital has just been funded to be built, as we've in recent days borne witness to the destruction of the very last hospital in northern Gaza. But needless to say, this new hospital isn't going to be for the people of Gaza, or indeed the people of the West Bank. But it is very much going to be built in the West Bank anyway. A great big brand new symbol of Israeli apartheid, as that would be. And we really do need to talk about how and why this is happening and who is behind it all for the sake of Israel, and why we are still allowing such matters to go completely unreported. Right, so a brand new hospital for Israel is to be built in the West Bank. All paid for thanks to a glitzy New York gala held on the 23rd of December, or rather the final amount of money to make this hospital a reality was raised. 35 million Israeli shekels, around $9.5 million, was raised at this event to ensure the finance was in place, following a pledge of 45 million shekels from the Netanyahu government, an initiative that was begun by the One Israel Foundation. Nothing sinister about that name when the West is supposed to be all about a two-state solution, is there? And the West Bank Council Chairman Yisrael Gantz all the way back in 2016. So this has been planned for a number of years now, and it should come as no surprise at all that that same One Israel Foundation were the hosts of this New York gala for the rich and the Zionist. The One Israel Foundation, or One Israel Fund as it is also known, has been around since 1994 and sees the current West Bank, referred to at all times by them as Judea and Samaria, collectively known as Yesha, the fund's so-called biblical heartlands, if you listen to them, as theirs by right, and the fund exists to promote Zionist interests in the West Bank. All that, as you can appreciate, the expense of the Palestinian people whose land it actually is. Building a hospital, therefore, in their land and raising money in the US to see it happen is completely on brand for them, therefore, and those with the money to splash on this scale and what their beliefs are on such matters. The hospital itself is due to be built in the industrial area of Shar Binyamin, and this is causing even more consternation because Shar Binyamin is in the so-called Area C of the West Bank. You see, the West Bank, for those not aware, is divided into three areas, A, B and C, and this was supposed to be temporary, but has remained in place ever since, where Area A, which is approximately 18% of the West Bank, is run by the Palestinian Authority. Area B, roughly 22% of the West Bank, is run jointly by the Palestinian Authority with shared security control with Israel, and the remaining 60% of the West Bank is completely under Israel's control, and that is Area C. Now, as I said, this was meant to be a temporary arrangement until Israel and Palestine reached a point where they mutually recognised the other's sovereignty, that two-state solution again, which of course we've never reached. But with Israel now building a hospital in Area C, that becomes less and less an achievable goal, as if Israel, frankly, were ever truly committed to it, rather than being more committed to just seizing Palestinian land and developing it for Israel's sake. Both Israeli settlers and Palestinians, of course, live in Area C, nonetheless, but this hospital is going to stand as a real symbol of Israeli apartheid there, because despite its location, despite the Palestinian people that live around that area, it is going to be for Jews only. It is going to stand in Palestinian land, but be off limits to Palestinians, to serve the people who believe their land is truly theirs, funded by people abroad who think exactly the same way, and all this hospital after hospital, as we've borne witness to, gets razed to the ground in Gaza, elsewhere in Palestine, so the optics are even more startlingly poor. Zionist settlers in the West Bank will have access to orthopedics, dialysis, imaging, hearing and vision centres, paediatrics, gynecology, emergency services and specialist doctor services. But the peoples whose land they are in won't get any of that. The Palestinian people across Gaza and the West Bank who are being denied the very basics in medical treatment, who the medics trying to treat them being arrested for daring to do so. The optics are just absolutely scandalous. But worst of them all, at that New York gala raising funds for this racist abomination and nailing on the fact that the incoming Trump administration will be no better for the people of Palestine than the Biden administration was, is the fact that it was Trump's pick for US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, the former governor of Arkansas, who was hosting it. Huckabee has come out with some quite mad and deranged comments when it comes to Israel, and utterly Zionist in everything he said. And if you aren't quite on par with who this guy is, let him tell you himself.
My feelings personally, and I'm speaking only as a person, I think Israel would only be acting on the property it already owns. I think Israel has title deed to Judea and Samaria. There are certain words I refuse to use. There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as a settlement. They're communities, they're neighborhoods, they're cities. There's no such thing as an occupation. That they get out of their minds that people are living in lean-tos and tents, and sleeping in cars, circled around a tree. They're living in very well-designed and beautiful cities and communities. Can't wait to get back. I'm going to take an extra hat. I'm going to get it to President-elect Trump. Build Israel great again. Who knows? We may see him wear this out there in one of his rallies somewhere. I don't know. Can't promise that. I can only promise he will get a copy of the hat. Thank you very much.
Settlements are well-designed communities, he said. They aren't land thefts. Israel has the title deeds to the West Bank in his view, which it of course does not. And he won't even call the West Bank, preferring its Israeli designation of Judea and Samaria. But compared to what he was saying at that gala, when he was really let off his leash, the appalling commentary you just bore witness to might seem tame by comparison. You see, Huckabee gave a speech in full-bore, true Christian evangelical style at that event, and it was as unhinged as any Zionist diatribe you might have had the bad fortune to have heard previously. Israeli news outlet Ynet picked up on some of it. Here's an excerpt of their coverage. Huckabee said, referring to the pro-Palestinian protests on campuses in the United States, there is nothing more evil in this world. The education that the parents of these students pay for is being wasted because of the spineless administrators of these institutions, who support idiot anti-Semites instead of supporting freedom of speech and freedom of religion. I hope every American understands the resilience of the Israeli people in their struggle with opposition and unprecedented anti-Semitism. This is a struggle between good and evil, and that is why we must stand with the Jewish people. Next year in Jerusalem, may God bless you. In his remarks, the designated US ambassador charged that Israel haters are in fact God haters. There is a force in our world today that has rejected the idea that there is a God who created the earth and the heavens. There is a force that does not believe that God chose a people and a land. There is a force of people who worship the creature instead of the creator. There is a force of people who reject God's laws and therefore reject the God of laws. And if you hate God, you will hate the people he chose for himself. Anti-Semitism does not make sense to a rational mind, but it is understandable when you understand that it is not a political struggle, not an economic struggle, not an educational struggle, and not a geopolitical struggle. It is not a horizontal struggle between left and right, between liberals and conservatives, between Democrats and Republicans. This struggle is vertical. This struggle is between heaven and hell. This struggle is between good and evil. This struggle is between God and people who think that they themselves are God. Huckabee thanked the donors to the One Israel Foundation, who he said have sacrificed a lot to allow people to continue living in the biblical heart of Judea and Samaria. He added, "It is a great privilege for me to salute those of you who believe in the Bible, because frankly that is why I am here. I believe in the Bible, and the book tells me that God will bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse Israel." I've been visiting this country for 52 years, he added. I've been there more than 100 times. I won't need a tourist map when I get there to know my way around. And I definitely know where Judea and Samaria is. And some of my favourite places in Israel are there. He noted that the Shiloh settlement is one of my favourite places in the whole country. With support for blatant apartheid from the US like this, all put in terms of abuse, frankly, of not just Judaism, but Christianity as well. I'm a Christian. I don't buy into whatever the hell Huckabee is smoking. But if he thinks he's embroiled in a battle of good and evil, I think he's got a very warped view of which is which. And by extension, you can only surmise those parting with hospital building sums of cash think likewise. That's what the people of Palestine are up against. But again, they're not hiding it from people capable of rational thought or empathy or logic who can see it for what it is. The trouble is, when you don't get told, and no Western media have covered this at all that I've seen, how would you know it's even going on? Client media are frankly criminal in their ongoing lack of coverage of too much of what is going on in the Middle East right now, failing to hold power out there to account, genocide and apartheid to account, but some of the headlines they've come out with ought to be criminal in and of themselves, and how much of this spin is being applied. Check out some of the worst examples recently in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Support alternative and independent media who are doing the real journalism, trying to get the word out more. Please do hit like, share and subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already, to help support what I do here too. That is very much appreciated, of course, and I will hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.